Hi, it's Mark Bernard here with the Bernard Institute for Cybersecurity Excellence. And today I'm going to be making a presentation on the NIST Cybersecurity Framework, talking about a set of controls under the Identify, the first module for business. And perhaps you caught my previous lesson on Identify. Please check back frequently and subscribe to my YouTube channel if you want to keep on top of these controls as I publish them. And send me any questions that you have, and please like and share. So under the NIST Cybersecurity Framework, we have 5 different sections. We have Identify, Protect, Respond, and Recover. And today we're talking about the business environment. And last week we talked about asset management. There are 5 controls underneath this section. It's called business environment. The organization's mission, objectives, stakeholders, and activities are understood and prioritized. This information is used to inform cybersecurity roles, responsibilities, and risk management decisions. The first control is the organization's role in the supply chain is identified and communicated. The next is the organization's place in the critical infrastructure and its industry sector is identified and communicated. And the third control is priorities for organizational mission, objectives, and activities are established and communicated. The fourth one is dependencies and critical functions for delivery of critical services are established. And finally, 5, resilience requirements to support delivery of critical services are established for all operating states. What I've noticed is that the controls are actually in a structure that doesn't really logically flow well, so I've rearranged them a little bit. So I've moved BE3 forward. Priorities for the organization, mission, objectives, and activities are established and communicated. So the first thing is we need to set priorities for the program, and that comes before we do any of the work underneath it. And then next, we need to understand the organization's place in the critical infrastructure. And this is probably the top of the hierarchy above delving into the supply chain and understanding the supply chain better. So the logical flow would be BE 3, 2, 1, and then 4 and 5. Dependencies for critical functions for delivery and critical services are established, and resilience requirements to support critical services are established. This is the proper flow, in my opinion. So I think the NIST Cybersecurity Framework needs to be looked at. If you have experience in implementing control frameworks, you'll understand where I'm coming from. If you don't, then you want to pay attention, because your work could be extremely difficult trying to do the implementation if you try to do it in the wrong sequence. Now, for BE3, priorities for the organization, mission, and objectives and activities are established. The best way to do that is to create a business plan. And the first steps would be to do sort of a SWOT analysis. So you want to compile details, including identify stakeholders, do the analysis, competitor analysis, etc. You can see below it's listed some activities here. Do the SWOT analysis, which is next. This involves external analysis of opportunities, threats, internal analysis of strengths and weaknesses, and then evaluate inputs and outputs. So we want to engage with stakeholders and get their input and validation of the SWOT analysis. We want to come up with some strategic analysis based on the SWOT and the input and the validation process. So again, we're engaging the stakeholders, making sure that we define what the threat and risk triggers are, the opportunities versus strength, and opportunities versus weakness, and in contrast, threats versus strength and threats versus weaknesses. And then we move into the formalized strategy. So we're going to document the goals for the program, for the NIST Cybersecurity program. We're going to identify critical success factors and key performance indicators to help act as guardrails and requirements for the program. And then we're going to define a number of tactical projects that are going to get done. We'll probably build a roadmap and plan these out. And then, of course, document resource and budget requirements. And finally, we need to get approval for the program. So we want to get sign-off for the goals, objectives, the CSFs and the KPIs, as well as the projects and resource requirements and budget requirements. Next, under the BE2, the organized placement in critical infrastructure needs to be understood. So what I've done is I've taken the 16 different areas of the critical infrastructure and I've prioritized them. So you may agree or disagree with this prioritization, but this is a first shot at this. So I believe that defense industry is number one. Emergency services are number two for obvious reasons, because without these services, we can't protect our country and we can't respond to any kind of natural disasters. Then healthcare, of course, in the public sector is important. Energy is important. Pardon me. Water and wastewater systems treatment. Food is important. Critical manufacturing, pardon me, is important. The communications sector is important. And so that's the priority 1 to 8. And then priority 9 to 16 are on the opposite side here. Now, under the organization's role in the supply chain needs to be identified and communicated. Every supply chain has a number of well-defined, well-understood roles. Any organization can play a part of the supply chain. We have raw materials. This applies to not just manufacturing of parts using like iron or other types of rare earth minerals, perhaps when it comes to electronics. But it could also apply to providing, building military equipment or space equipment or any kind of electrical generation equipment. The materials are used to manufacture the products, and there could be a number of manufacturers as well as sources for raw materials. And then, of course, once the manufacturing is done, it's warehoused or it's shipped to the site. And then we have a number of course, salespeople working in the middle there to make sure that, somebody's purchasing this equipment and taking care of it. And then we have the distribution channel. And that's, so the organization has to understand, like, where do you fit into this? Are you a manufacturer? Are you a supply? Do you provide the distribution? Do you do the warehousing? Where do you sit in this? Now, under BE4, dependency is a critical infrastructure for delivery. So we're drilling down, so we're peeling off another layer of that supply chain. So once you understand what your role is within those 16 critical infrastructure divisions, if you like, and you understand what your role is within the manufacturing or delivery of the services, then you need to understand about your supply chain. So this really is sort of a business continuity, a business impact process. You need to, again, find out where your subcomponents are coming from, where your assembly plants are. And there could be millions and hundreds of organizations involved in this, as well as the physical offices for the logistics to move and to ensure that these get installed and monitored. The distribution centers for the products as they make their way to the final destination. And of course, there could be retail outlets involved and the consumers. And in the commercial sector, it's consumers. Consumers can be private citizens, but consumers can also be government organizations. When it comes to the resilience, now, once we have the assets in place, then we need to monitor them for vulnerabilities. We need to provide a cradle to grave monitoring system so that we know when these devices or products need to be maintained, or monitor them for faulting in case they provide some vital function, so that we know when we need to investigate, do any sort of problem analysis. There's a number of steps involved in that. Most of the exposures to threats, because we talked about risk management being an important role here. We know about approximately 40% of these threats are unknown. 60% we manage, and because of the great number of 40% of them being unknown, then we have to apply a resilience model where we do monitoring of anomalies, we do threat hunting, we do patch management, vulnerability management. We do some red teaming to test the security and the effectiveness of our systems. And of course, internal audit plays a vital role because they do the quality control. All right. Now, what do you need to do all of this? Well, to do the business, the plan, etc., you need to have a business continuity management process, really, in order to do this. You need to document everything. in the supply chain, and the business continuity process is the best way to do that. You need to understand what the legal obligations are. So it needs to filter into the contracts, because if you have some priority, if you're a priority supplier within the industry, the critical infrastructure, then you need to make sure your agreements have the right clauses in it so that you get the right kind of support from your supply chain. You need to do strategic communications and awareness training. You need to make sure that the right people know about your plans and participate in them. And where necessary, you need to train people up and get them ready. So that's under BE3. And these are just suggestions. Under BE2 and BE1, you need to do a business impact assessment, critical path analysis to identify what you truly need at a bare minimum to get the job done, deliver your services or products, and what you need on a bigger picture. You also need to do risk assessments, because if you remember in the overarching objective for this control set, risk management plays a key role. So obviously risk management methodology is also important. Under BE4, you need to do supplier relationship management practices to make sure your supply chain is healthy, and if there are problems that you're dealing with them. You need to set some service level objectives. So there's a service level management practice or a standard that you need to set. And under BE5, you need to do asset management. Again, you want to manage the assets from cradle to grave. You want to make sure that they're taken care of and that they're removed or monitored and maintained as needed. You also want to do vulnerability management, because while you can patch against the threats and vulnerabilities that you know, which improves your resilience, there are things that we don't know about. So those things also have to be checked through the resilience framework. And then you want to do security continuity or service continuity, to make sure that you test your services and make sure that they're operational under all situations. And of course, incident handling, last but not least, when a problem arises, you need to be able to respond, and the people who are involved in responding need to know what they're supposed to be doing. So this is all part of the NIST Cybersecurity Framework, BE, Business Environment, under the first module, Identify. If you have any questions or comments, please direct them to me. You have my website and my email address, also my phone number. I wish you a great day, and thank you for your time. And don't forget to like and share my video. Thank you.